Most people think the magic of intimacy is in the moment itself, the closeness, the chemistry, the passion. And don't get me wrong, that's powerful. But here's the thing hardly anyone talks about. What actually leaves the deepest mark on someone's heart isn't the moment itself, but what happens in those minutes right after. That's when the memory takes root. That's when feelings solidify. That's when someone decides, even subconsciously, whether they feel truly connected to you or whether it was just a physical experience. You see, during intimacy, there's a lot going on: adrenaline, dopamine, a rush of emotions and sensations. And while that's wonderful, it's also fleeting. The human brain is wired to remember the aftertaste of an experience more vividly than the experience itself. Think about a great meal. You don't just remember the food, you remember how you felt leaving the restaurant. Did you feel cared for, appreciated, special? Or did you feel like it was over too quickly, like there was nothing deeper to hold on to? The same is true here. A lot of people unknowingly treat intimacy like a transaction. Once it's over, they move on, roll over, check their phone, or drift into sleep without a second thought. But here's the secret: it's in that quiet, post-intimacy space where emotional bonds are either built or broken. In those moments, someone's guard is down, they're open. They're listening in ways they might not even realize. And that's why the little things you do right after can be remembered forever. Maybe it's the way you pull them closer instead of pulling away. Maybe it's the way you smile at them like you're still a little in awe. Maybe it's the way you let the silence breathe instead of rushing to fill it with words. It's not about grand gestures, it's about the authenticity of presence. A man might forget the exact details of the passion, how long, how intense, how it started, but he will remember how he felt when it ended. Did he feel seen? Did he feel like he mattered beyond the physical? That's why the first few moments after intimacy are like wet cement. Whatever you leave there will harden into the memory. It could be a look, a touch, a laugh, a whispered, "I'm happy right now." It doesn't need to be planned. In fact, if it feels rehearsed, it loses its power. What makes it unforgettable is that it's born from genuine connection in a moment of vulnerability. Too often, people underestimate the emotional sensitivity that exists right after physical closeness. They think men don't notice, or they assume men aren't as affected by it. But they do notice. They might not talk about it. They might not even consciously analyze it. But somewhere in the back of their mind, they're filing away that memory. This is how she makes me feel when we're at our closest. And here's the kicker: it's often that memory, not the physical act itself, that determines whether they keep thinking about you days later or whether the connection fades. So when you think about intimacy, don't just focus on the fireworks, focus on the glow afterward, because it's in that glow that the deepest emotional imprint is made, and that's what he'll carry with him, sometimes for the rest of his life. Feeling seen is one of the deepest human needs, and yet it's something so many people miss in their relationships. After intimacy, when the guard is down and the emotional window is wide open, it's the perfect moment to give that gift, to show him that you don't just notice the surface, you notice him. Not just the way he looks or what he did in the moment, but the man underneath all of that. When a man feels truly seen, it's not just flattering, it's grounding. It tells him, you matter to me in a way that has nothing to do with performance, nothing to do with impressing me, nothing to do with being perfect. That's the part that sticks in his mind long after the night is over. There's a quiet power in taking those moments afterward and acknowledging something genuine about him. Maybe it's the way you tell him you appreciate how safe he makes you feel. Maybe it's the way you look at him with that mixture of gratitude and curiosity, as if you're still discovering him. These are the moments when words carry a weight they don't have anywhere else, because they're spoken in a space where there's no competition, no audience, no distractions. You're both in the same bubble, and in that bubble, sincerity hits differently. The truth is, many men go through life feeling like no one is really paying attention to who they are at their core. They might get recognition for their achievements, their work, their appearance, or their ability to provide, but very few people take the time to see the subtler things: their kindness, their effort, their way of thinking, their quiet sacrifices. If you notice those things, especially in the most vulnerable moment, you create a memory that stands out from every other encounter he's ever had. It tells him you're not just here for the physical connection, you're here because you value him. And here's the thing, you don't need a speech. Sometimes just a small observation is enough. I love the way you, followed by something specific and honest, can go deeper than a long declaration. It's about accuracy, not volume. When your words match what he secretly hopes someone would notice, it feels like you've reached a place no one else has. That's when you see the look in his eyes shift. Not because you've flattered him, but because you've touched something real. Being seen isn't just about compliments, it's also about presence. Sometimes it's the way you stay close, the way you listen if he talks, or the way you simply let him exist without rushing the moment. Men remember when they can relax into being themselves without feeling judged, pressured, or compared. That sense of safety is rare, and once it's tied to you, it becomes addictive. It's why certain people linger in our thoughts for years, because they allowed us to be fully ourselves in a way we can't be with everyone. When you give a man that feeling after intimacy, you're creating more than a memory. You're creating a home in his mind, a place he'll come back to, consciously or not, whenever he thinks about closeness. He may not even have the words to explain why it mattered so much, but he'll know it did. And that knowing will be the thing that keeps your connection alive long after the moment has passed. There's something almost magical about the kind of touch that isn't rushed, isn't planned, and isn't about leading somewhere else. The kind that simply says, "I'm here with you." After intimacy, a man is in one of his most unguarded states, and in that quiet space, a simple, lingering touch can leave an impression that words never could. It's not about grabbing his attention, it's about anchoring the feeling of connection in a way his mind and body will remember. Humans are wired to associate physical sensations with emotions. A soft hand on his chest, fingers brushing against his jaw, or your palm resting gently over his hand can become a trigger, not just for desire, but for comfort, trust, and warmth. When touch is offered without an agenda, it communicates something rare: safety. In a world where so many gestures are transactional or have an expected outcome, a touch that expects nothing back stands out. It tells him you're not just there for the heat of the moment. You're invested in the closeness afterward. This is what makes it an anchor. It ties the physical act to an emotional truth that being with you feels calm, accepted, and real. Think about the moments in life that you remember most vividly. Often it's not the big, dramatic gestures, but the quiet, intimate ones that catch you off guard. That's exactly how this works. When he's lying there, catching his breath, and you reach over and let your fingertips trace lazy patterns on his skin, you're giving his mind something to store alongside the memory of that night. That gentle pressure, that warmth, becomes something he can recall without even trying. Weeks later, something as small as leaning back in bed might bring back that feeling. And with it, thoughts of you. The power of a lingering touch is that it bridges the gap between the physical and the emotional. It doesn't just signal affection in that moment, it cements the bond in a way that's hard to replicate through conversation alone. Words can be doubted, overanalyzed, or forgotten. A genuine, unhurried touch bypasses the overthinking part of the brain and speaks directly to something deeper. It says, "I like being close to you for the sake of being close." And for many men, that's a kind of intimacy they rarely experience. This isn't about being overly delicate or rehearsed. It's about authenticity. If you're doing it to create an effect, he'll feel that. But if you're doing it because you genuinely want to keep that connection alive a little longer, that's when it becomes memorable. Sometimes it's as simple as not moving away too quickly, letting your bodies stay in contact, even in stillness. Sometimes it's holding his hand like you have nowhere else to be. Those little acts have a way of making him feel not just desired, but valued. Over time, if this becomes part of your natural rhythm, it turns into your signature, a silent way of saying, "This is us." And men notice those signatures, even if they never say it out loud. They become part of the private language between you, something no one else shares. It's in those moments when he realizes that what you have isn't just physical chemistry, it's a connection that touches him in ways he can't easily put into words. And long after the night is over, long after days or weeks have passed, that anchor will still be there holding the memory in place. There's a kind of communication that happens without saying a single word, and after intimacy, it can be more powerful than anything you could ever articulate. It's in the eyes. In those moments, you're not just looking at each other, you're seeing each other. And that look, that unspoken exchange, has the power to make him feel something he can't even fully explain. When you meet his gaze in that quiet space afterward, it's not about analyzing, it's not about checking how you look, it's about letting him see that you're still present with him. That you're not mentally somewhere else, already moving on to the next thing. Eye contact in that moment is like a truth serum. It strips away the small talk and the masks people wear. It's vulnerable because it says, "I'm here and I'm letting you in." For a man, that can be rare. He may have experienced plenty of passion before, but that deep, steady eye contact afterward hits different. It signals a connection that goes beyond physical attraction. It tells him he's not just a body you shared a night with, he's someone you're connecting to as a person. The beauty of this unspoken gesture is that it lingers in memory because it bypasses logic. Our brains are wired to store emotional moments tied to strong visual cues. The way your eyes look in that dim light, the softness of your expression, the slight curve of your smile, these things get imprinted without him even realizing it. Later, he might remember that night not just for what happened, but for how you looked at him afterward. That image becomes a shortcut to the feeling you gave him. There's a subtle art to it. It's not about staring in some intense, rehearsed way. It's about letting your eyes rest on his with warmth, maybe with a little amusement, maybe with quiet gratitude. It's that mix of emotions that makes it real, like you're both in on a secret only the two of you share. Sometimes you might even hold his gaze for just a beat longer than expected, letting the silence stretch in a comfortable way. That pause creates space for him to really feel the moment instead of rushing past it. When you give someone that kind of look, you're telling them, "I'm still here with you, we're still connected." And for a man, especially one who isn't used to lingering intimacy, that can be disarming in the best way. It's a moment of being chosen again, right after he's already had you in the most vulnerable way. It's reassurance without needing to explain anything. Over time, if this becomes a habit, it turns into something he'll come to expect, not in a taken for granted way, but in the sense that it becomes your shared language. The look you give him afterward will be something he can recall vividly, even if he's halfway across the world, even if years have passed. It's not about the physical specifics, it's about the emotional stamp you leave on his memory. What's so powerful about this is that it's effortless once you understand it. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to make the moment grand. You just need to stay there for a second longer. Let your eyes say what your lips don't, and let him see that the connection hasn't faded with the end of the act. That look will follow him, replaying in his mind, quietly reminding him of what it felt like to be truly seen and chosen in that exact moment. And that's a memory that's almost impossible to forget. Appreciation and validation might seem similar on the surface, but in moments after intimacy, they couldn't be more different. Validation is about confirming that he did something right, that he was good enough in the moment, that he met some unspoken standard. Appreciation, on the other hand, runs much deeper. It's not about rating the experience or measuring his performance. It's about valuing him. The person, the effort, the energy, the way he shows up for you beyond just the physical. And when you give a man genuine appreciation after being that vulnerable together, it touches a place in him that validation never reaches. Think about it. Validation is fleeting. It's like applause after a performance. It feels good, but it fades as soon as the clapping stops. Appreciation, however, has roots. It sticks because it connects to identity, not just action. When you tell him something sincere about who he is, maybe how thoughtful he was, how present he made you feel, or how much you value the way he connects with you, you're speaking to the part of him that wants to be loved for more than what he can do. That's rare, and that rarity is what makes it memorable. In the quiet after intimacy, when the world feels far away, your words carry a different weight. If you choose them to point out something real and personal, they don't just compliment the moment, they affirm his place in your life. It's the difference between "you are amazing" and "I love the way you make me feel safe when I'm with you." The first feeds his ego. The second feeds his heart, and the heart is where you want to plant that seed if you want it to grow into a lasting connection. Men are often conditioned to seek validation, to prove themselves, to perform, to earn approval. That means they hear a lot of surface-level praise, but far less appreciation for the deeper qualities they bring into someone's life. So when, in that vulnerable space after closeness, you acknowledge something beyond the physical, you create a moment that feels different from anything else. It's not just a pat on the back, it's a reminder that he is valued for who he is at his core. This doesn't have to be a long speech. Sometimes it's a quiet sentence whispered almost without thinking. Sometimes it's your tone more than your words, the way you say his name like you're genuinely happy he's there. True appreciation feels unforced. It comes from noticing the small details that most people overlook and then giving them back to him in a way that makes him feel truly understood. And here's the beauty of it. Appreciation creates a positive loop. When a man feels appreciated, not just validated, he naturally wants to show up for you more. He becomes more present, more connected, and more willing to let down his own guard. That moment after intimacy becomes not just a soft landing, but a springboard for even deeper connection next time. So in that quiet space, skip the generic praise. Instead, notice something real about him. The way he listens, the way he makes you laugh when you need it, the way he slows down to match your pace. Say it in your own words, in your own style, and mean it. Because those are the things that stay with him. That replay in his mind later when he thinks about you. And when a man carries appreciation like that with him, it's not just a memory. It's a feeling he'll keep coming back to, over and over again. Memories are powerful, but they're even more powerful when they're tied to something consistent. That's the beauty of having a signature gesture, something you do every time that becomes yours and his alone. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. In fact, the smaller and more personal it is, the stronger it becomes. When a man experiences something repeatedly in moments of vulnerability, his mind starts to link that gesture with comfort, affection, and safety. Over time, it's no longer just something you do. It's part of your connection's identity. Think about the small rituals we remember from childhood, the way someone always tucked us in, or a certain scent in the kitchen on weekends. Those things stick because they weren't random. They happened over and over until they became part of how we defined love and care. The same thing happens in romantic relationships. If after intimacy you have a way of touching him, holding him, or even saying something that's just yours, you're building an association his brain will store for years. That moment stops being just a moment, it becomes a signature. What's beautiful about this is how subtle it can be. Maybe it's the way you always rest your head on his chest and let your hand stay on his heart. Maybe it's the soft laugh you give when you're still catching your breath. Maybe it's the whispered, "I'm happy right now," that you say without thinking. Whatever it is, when it's repeated, it transforms into something that can be recalled in an instant. Even when you're not around, that memory becomes a place he can visit in his mind. Consistency also has another quiet power. It builds trust. When you do something every time without fail, it tells him that your affection isn't conditional or situational. It's not about whether the night was perfect or whether everything went according to plan. It's simply who you are with him. And trust, especially after intimacy, makes the emotional bond much harder to break. The key is authenticity. A gesture can't be manufactured or forced just because you want it to be memorable. It has to be something you naturally enjoy giving. If it comes from a genuine place, it won't feel like a performance. It'll feel like an extension of the connection you already share. Over time, he won't just look forward to that gesture. He'll rely on it. It will become the thing that reassures him you're still right there with him in the same emotional space, even after the physical part is over. And the more it happens, the deeper it imprints. One day, he'll realize that whenever he thinks of you, he's not picturing the fireworks of the most passionate night. He's remembering that signature moment afterward. The way you always lingered. The way you always made it feel like the world could wait a little longer. That's what makes someone unforgettable, because it's not about trying to impress in a single moment. It's about leaving a trail of moments that add up to a feeling he can't get anywhere else. When you give someone that kind of consistent emotional anchor, it becomes more than just part of your time together. It becomes part of who you are in their life. And once that happens, the memory isn't going anywhere. It's woven into his sense of what it means to be close to you. And that's something he'll carry long after the moment, the night, or even the relationship itself has passed.